So I'm sorry, I was held up some other work. Anyhow, so today we will start anal canal. So this is being the last part. We are taking up it in the end. Okay. So anal canal commences at the pelvic diaphragm, where the rectum ends. Anal canal will start. So and it ends at the anal verge. So these terms are important. So anal verge is the external opening of anal canal. Okay. So the junction between rectum and anal canal, that is a muscular junction, and you can feel it per rectal examination as a thickened ridge. So the already you knew that anorectal ring is formed by these muscles, both voluntary and involuntary. Voluntary being puborectalis. This is the main part of the anorectal ring, which acts as the sphincter. Then deep external sphincter. So external sphincter is having three parts, of which deepest is the deep external ring. Then the longitudinal muscle of the rectum will also participate. That is called as conjoint longitudinal muscle. Then this is the highest part of internal sphincter. Okay, the inner circular layer of the rectum will become internal sphincter at the anorectal junction. So, and highest part of it. So, these four parts will form the anorectal ring. Okay, puborectalis muscle, which is voluntary, deep external sphincter, which is also voluntary, whereas the conjoined longitudinal muscle and the highest part of internal sphincter, these two are involuntary. So internal sphincter is the, as I told you, is the continuation of circular muscle fiber. So it is circular and involuntary, and it is supported by, of course, supplied by the autonomic nerves. Whereas external sphincter is the striated muscle. This is voluntary, helps whenever we want to control voluntarily. So, and it is supplied by the pudendal nerve. So this is somatic, this is autonomic. Okay. So this is important, as I told you. So this is the rectum. Up to this is the rectum. Then it will start. So this is the inner longitudinal, the outer longitudinal layer, and this is the inner circular layer. So outer longitudinal layer and inner circular layer. So beyond that there is this puborectalis muscle and the external sphincter. So the external sphincter is having three parts. Okay. So this is the external sphincter, that is the deepest part. And then you have the subcutaneous and superficial parts also here. This whole thing is the external sphincter muscle. Whereas the circular muscle is starting to become the internal sphincter. So the internal sphincter, the highest part or deep part, is the one that participates in the anorectal ring, along with this puborectalis, this external sphincter, and this is the longitudinal. So four parts. Okay. Of course, there are this venous plexus. This venous plexus are called as anal cushions. Okay. Then you have both the, as I told you, in the rectum itself, they are the both there are three blood supplies, as I told you. So this is the inferior hemorrhoidal plexus. Okay. Now, so the inside anatomy also is very important. So this, you see this. So this is the rectum and this is the anorectal junction. But actually, though this is the anorectal junction, up to this part, it is formed by the hindgut. Whereas from this part to this part, so upper 2 centimeters are formed by the hindgut of the anal canal being around 4 centimeters in length. So the lower 2 centimeters are formed by the ectoderm. So that's why you can see the clear difference between the mucosa of the rectum and anal mucosa and anal skin. So the anal mucosa formed by endoderm only. Whereas though this is rectum is longitudinal cells, here they assume cuboidal cells. So that's why the color difference is there. So this is the pink color, whereas this is red color. As it goes, it is getting darker. So this is called as plum color. And then immediately you can see that there is definite color change because this is ectoderm and this part about 1 centimeter is devoid of any hair follicles or any glands. That's why it is white. Actually it is called as parchment color. So this is also called as, the junction is also called as dentate line. Of course, this is the lower distal part is the true anal skin. It is pigmented, it is having hair follicles, it's having sebaceous, all those things. So once again, this is pink color, this is red color, this is plum color, this is white color, and this is dark color. So this difference you should appreciate. So 5 colors. So now let us go to the anatomy. So the pink columnar epithelium extends into the surgical anal canal. So this is the surgical anal canal. Though anatomically we call it as rectum and anorectal junction is here, but as I told you, both anatomically and embryologically and surgically also, this is part of the rectum only. Okay, so this is ectoderm, this is endoderm. So it becomes cuboidal, red and above anal walls to plum color, as I told you. So this is cuboidal cells. Then crypts of Morgagni present between columns of Morgagni. So these are the columns of Morgagni. These are the vertical folds are present. They are called as columns of Morgagni. In between these columns, in the lower part here, they will open. They are called as crypts of Morgagni. So actually it is the anal gland openings. So the anal gland open into the anal lumen through these anal crypts. So the anal glands are actually somewhere here inside. They are opening through the crypts of Morgagni. So the mucosa and submucosa is thrown into three folds, the anal cushions. So as I told you, there are two arteries on the right side and one on the left side in the blood supply. So they will be continuing to anal canal, and the arteries are followed by the veins, corresponding veins. So they are one on the left side at 3 o'clock position. So this I'll show you. Difficult, only in this I can show you. So this is the 3 o'clock position, one on the left side. Then another at 7 o'clock position, and second one on the right side, that is the third one total, 11 o'clock position. So three anal cushions will be there like this. So this is 3 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 11 o'clock. So in nutshell, anal cushions are nothing but the venous plexus at the anal canal level. Okay, so you can see clearly that these are the anal cushions. So left lateral, I already told you 3 o'clock, right posterior and right anterior. Anterior is 11 o'clock, posterior is 7 o'clock. So then what happens is there is abrupt transition to stratified squamous epithelium below the valve. So here this abruptly it will change to stratified squamous but devoid of any hair follicles, and that junction is called as dentate line. Very, very important surgical link. Dentate line. Just above the line are the openings of the crypts. Okay. So then dentate line is most important landmark morphologically, surgically. So it represents the fusion of proctodium and post-allantoic gut. So this is the proctodium and this is the post-allantoic gut. So this is otherwise hind gut. So hind gut and this proctodium junction. In imperforate anus, usually it is here, that is membrane may be there. So anoderm is thin, shiny and parchment color. So this is the anoderm, that is thin and parchment color. It is corresponding to almost white color. Then it differs because there are no epidermal appendage. So the blood supply is superior, middle and inferior rectal vessels. Same vessels will continue to supply the anal canal also. Okay. Lymphatic drainage, see, because it is anatomically, surgically different, the lymphatics below this line will drain into inguinal, whereas above this line will go up to upwards. So that is the difference, right? Hope you understood this. Now let us talk up something about per anal or per rectal examination. Though we call as commonly as PR, that is per rectal examination, we are examining only the lower part of the rectum, please mind it. So your finger will not, see, this is up to, this is 4 centimeters. So 4 plus, if you have ladies' fingers, it may be another 2 to 3 centimeters, up to this only. So this is the lower part of the rectum only you can feel. You cannot feel about this. So that's why, though we call it as per rectal, that's why I have added as per anal examination instead of per rectal, because truthfully we will be seeing more of anal canal rather than the rectum, lower part of the rectum only. So what are the prerequisites? This is the most important order of priority. So good light. This is the most important aspect of perennial examination. And the patient should be relaxed. For him to be relaxed, he should have an informed consent. He should give you an informed consent. You should explain the procedure, proper procedure, then only proceed. Otherwise, he will not relax, he or she, particularly ladies, they will contract the sphincter and you cannot examine anything. So then, private environment, you cannot examine openly, private environment. And another last, if a male doctor is there, a female attendant or nurse is invariable for females. Okay. So what are the three different positions? All of you know this by this time. So this is the left lateral position. Actually, this can also be straightened. That is Sims position. Whereas this is the position we adopt for males. That is knee elbow position. Then this is mainly for surgery. See, you can see that they are tied. So this is mainly for surgery, but sometimes if you want to examine posterior parts, you can, this is the best. This is best for anterior, this is best for posterior. Okay. So these are the three positions. In the practical examination, you will be asked about the positions of the perrectal examination. Okay. So what are the different aspects of perrectal examination? Consists of three aspects. One is, that is inspection. So if you separate both the buttocks and then see like this, if you can separate, you can clearly see the external opening and some diseases there. So you can see the various skin lesions. So many skin lesions may be present there. So then warts, anal warts, both viral and syphilitic. So viral may turn into malignancy also, so warts. Then anal leakage. If the patient is complaining of incontinence, then you can have a proof if there is anal leakage. Then sentinel tag. So sentinel tag is usually present on the posterior aspect here because of the posterior fissure. This is commonly seen in females. So fissure in ano, it can be clearly seen posteriorly. Of course, anterior fissures are also there. Then if hemorrhoids are prolapsed, you can see prolapsed hemorrhoids. Then you can also see the carcinomas. Suppose there is anal carcinoma. Anal carcinoma, unlike rectal carcinomas, is usually squamous cell, not adenocarcinoma. Okay, that can be seen. Then another thing that can be seen is the external opening of fistula in ano. So fistula in ano, external opening. Fistula, as you know, will have two openings, one external, one internal. So external opening of fistula in ano can be seen. So these are all the various lesions that can be simply seen on inspection. Then you will do what is called as digital examination with a lubricated index finger. After gloving, you have to lubricate with a jelly, preferably anesthetic jelly. and then usually we use index finger unless it's a child, when we will use little finger, but it is not that easy to do unless you are experienced. So usually we try to examine with index finger only. So what are all the things you can feel? Induration. Induration may be there for an ulcer or malignancy. Or so then tenderness. So the tenderness, particularly if there is any fissure in an, you can feel tenderness. Then the sphincter length and tone. Sometimes there may be sphincter spasm. If there is sphincter spasm in spite of, you are explaining the procedure, in spite of lubrication of the finger, still patient, particularly a female, may be apprehensive. Then there is sphincter spasm. You should not proceed further. You should abandon the procedure. Then next time again you can examine, or you have to examine under anesthesia, and never you try to circumvent this sphincter spasm. Patient may go into this vasovagal shock also. So you can assess in a relaxed patient a sphincter length and the tone of the sphincter. Of course, in males, prostate. In the masses. Then in females, you can feel the cervix, and also in both, you can see both masses and internal opening of fistula in an external opening. On inspection, you can see internal opening. Sometimes it is possible without probing to palpate the internal opening. Then after removing the finger, you should not simply discard the glove without examining the finger for mucus, blood or pus, and even the color of the fecal matter. So sometimes the patient may say that he or she is suffering with melena. Then you can confirm it by looking at the finger stall. So it may be mucus, it may be blood, altered blood or pus. Okay. So that is digital examination. Then proctoscopy, you can see all these. Proctoscopy, there are two uses. One is diagnostic, another is therapeutic. So what are the diagnostic uses? It is internal piles, that is hemorrhoids. Internal hemorrhoids you cannot see or feel. You cannot palpate hemorrhoids. Only you can see on proctoscopy. On inspection you cannot see. So then internal opening of fistula in ano also can be seen. You can see the polyps, interception, any ulcers or carcinoma. So these are all the things which we can see on proctoscopy. Then therapeutic uses, of course, you can take a bit for biopsy from ulcer or growth, and then you can inject or apply bands to piles, that is hemorrhoids. You can excise small polyps, and of course in the earlier class in rectum I told you about TEMS. What is this TEMS? What is TEMS? So it is don't know what is TEMS. Okay. So in the last class I told you, but still you are forgetting or not concentrating on the classes enough. So TEMS is So transanal endoscopic microsurgery for earlier lesions of CA rectum and yeah, now you have answered 16. Yeah. So transanal endoscopic surgery for carcinoma of the rectum and anal canal in earlier stages. That is very, very important. Okay. Then proctoscopy, as I told you, you can see in spite of proctoscope only lower half, not even lower half, lower one third of rectum. So in fact, it should have been called as anoscopy. So anal speculum, not proctoscope, because you cannot see entire rectum, because rectum and anal canal almost 20 centimeters in length. So you cannot see 20 centimeters with a 10 centimeter scope. So you have to invariably do a sigmoidoscope if you want to, if you are suspecting any lesion in the rectum. Whereas in anal canal, proctoscopy is enough. But why you should also do sigmoidoscopy even in anal conditions is apparently it may be simple piles, but inside there is carcinoma. So carcinoma rectum can present with piles. So the patient may complain of bleeding per rectum and you will do proctoscopy and see piles. Okay, this is the reason for bleeding, you may think, but in fact it is carcinoma of the rectum. So in those cases you need to do sigmoidoscopy. Similarly, fissures can be manifestation, external manifestation of inside colitis. So it is a good practice to do sigmoidoscopy in suspected cases, particularly bleeding cases. If obviously a young fellow with bleeding piles are there, it's okay. But in an old man, 60 years, if he's complaining of bleeding piles, you have to do sigmoidoscopy. So now let us go to some congenital problems. So as I told you already, embryologically it is both urogenital and rectum or common chamber, that is called as cloaca. So this cloaca will divide, this cloaca is divided by urorectal septum, which will separate the hindgut that forms the rectum, and allantois, which will form the urogenital sinus. Again, urogenital septum will divide urological and genital systems separately. So, this is urorectal septum that divides the cloaca into two: hindgut, which is dorsally present, and urogenital sinus, which is ventrally present. As I told you, this distal proctodium is separated by the cloacal membrane. So it is like this. So this is the cloaca divided by the urorectal septum into hindgut and urogenital sinus. Of course, it will again divide, that is different matter, let us not bother about it. Then you have proctodium. So there is a membrane here. This is called as the anal membrane. Okay. So this is of course cloacal membrane, entire thing is cloacal, whereas the dorsal part is called as anal membrane. And as the child, or not child, the fetus grows, this will open up. So that is how it is separated. Okay. So yeah, my camera is not seen. Oh, I'm sorry. Now you can see. So this is the cloaca, separated by urorectal membrane. And this membrane, this urorectal septum, into dorsal hindgut and the ventral allantois. So now this is attached to distally the proctodium. So there is a membrane here that is called as anal membrane, right? So anal canal will form once this gets resolved. So this gets opened up. That is the formation of anal canal because of resorption. So already you have heard about imperforate anus, or broad term anorectal malformations. It's also called as anal agenesis or atresia. You already know that there are two main groups, that is high and low anorectal anomalies. So how they are classified into high and low? On the level of termination of the rectum in relation to the pelvic floor. If it is above pelvic floor, it is high. If it is crossed the pelvic floor, it is low. Of course, there is intermediate also, but don't bother. Grossly, it is high and low. Okay. So the lower defects are mainly just there is anal membrane or covered anus. If you simply break it, that is the end of the matter. Okay. Whereas high defects, there is associated underdevelopment of the sacrum, the pelvic and anal musculature. Whole thing is underdeveloped. So in the same diagram, so the sacrum is developing here. So this is, it is not developed properly. Then the pelvic musculature, this is also, and the anorectal musculature also. So the whole muscles here, they are also underdeveloped. So that's why, though you have repaired, there may be incontinence. That is the problem. Now, in anorectal malformations, what is the most frequent defect in boys? It is rectobulbar fistula. Whereas most common in girls is rectovestibular fistula. So then, of course, if there is meconium, you are happy because it is low defect. If you can see even a drop of meconium or staining of meconium, that means it is a low defect. You are happy. Simply it is, you can do what is called as cutback anoplasty. So you can simply cut here. So that is called as cut back anoplasty. So for low defects it is anoplasty, right? But another ominous symptom or not sign is the meconium in urine. That means there is urinary tract fistula. So the rectum has opened into the urinary tract. Okay. So you have to evaluate for other associated congenital anomalies. What are the associated congenital anomalies with anorectal malformations? I think I am asking this question for the second or third time. So, what are the other associated congenital anomalies of anorectal malformations? Yes. Yeah, VACTRL, correct? So it is either later or VACTRL. So vertebral, anorectal, cardiac, tracheoesophageal, then even renal, then limb, radius. So they're all the associated. First of all, you should exclude cardiac mainly. Yeah, all of you are correct. 44, 148, 45, correct. So what you have to do is, because the air that the child sucks will take time of around 24 hours. You have to wait till 24 hours. So the distal limit of the rectum will then reach the end by 24 hours. What is this distal limit? It is the distance between the rectal stump and the perineum. So then you have to do what is called as invertogram, that is lateral prone radiograph, like this. So this is the lateral prone radiograph, where you can see that this is the marker and this is the air. That means this is low anorectal malformation. Whereas this is high defect, where this is marker here and it has stopped here, the air shadow. So there is some distance is there. So some people estimate what is called as pubococcygeal line, PC line. If it is below PC line, it is low. If it is above PC line or even at the PC line, it is high. So already I told you about males, male child, rectobulbar. You can see that the bulbar urethra and the rectum are fused here. So this is rectobulbar. Whereas rectovestibular, it is not rectovaginal, which is seen acquired. Acquired is rectovaginal, whereas it is rectovestibular in female child. So there is a common channel of vagina and the rectum here. So through that, this can open. So what is the treatment? For low anomalies, it is anaplasty, already I told you. Whereas for higher ones, first thing you have to do is colostomy. So after colostomy, you can plan. Once the child is grown up, you can do what is called as PSARP. So posterior sacral This is anorectoplasty. Okay. So that is the surgery they do, so that minimal. Previously they used to do laparotomy and all, but now that is not necessary. So PSARP is the treatment of choice for high anorectal anomalies. Now there are some other conditions like post-anal dermoid cyst. So this is the one that is present posterior to the anal canal but anterior to the sacrum coccyx. So this is actually this is hidden in the hollow of the sacrum, and then it may not protrude out like the external angular dermoid or like that. So, but the patient may complain of difficulty in defecation. It may have sinus, and then there may be sebaceous material coming out, or it may be inflamed and then pus may be coming out through the sinus. So externally you may not see much except a small bulge, but if you do PR, you can definitely palpate posteriorly this swelling. So one important differential diagnosis in children is anterior sacral meningocele. So you should not miss this and simply dub it as post-anal dermoid cyst, and then if you try to excise it, it will result in horrible consequences. So anterior sacral meningocele. So there are certain spaces, places where meningocele is common, isn't it? So particularly on the back. So in the cervical region or in the lumbar region and even in the sacral region. Okay. Then what is the treatment? You have to excise it. Of course, sometimes you may need to remove the coccyx also, because if incomplete removal may lead to complication as sacrococcygeal teratoma. So that is very, very important. Sometimes there is what is called as post-anal dimple also. That is not much of a problem for us. Okay. It's only just like a dimple on the cheek. There may be dimple post-anally also. It's of no consequence. Then one important topic, it may be given as a short notes for you, is pilonidal sinus. So what is it usually, how will it manifest? As one or sometimes even more. Usual presentation is one, but there may be more. Non-infected midline opening in the natal cleft just over the coccyx. So that is pilonidal sinus. So why it is called sinus? Because it is lined by granulation tissue, not epithelium or mucosa. That is very, very important. So this pit-like opening will be communicating inside with a slender tract lined by granulation tissue. And it is common in military people who travel for prolonged hours, like our people now in Ladakh region. So traveling, particularly drivers. Previously, the common mode of transport was jeep. That's why it is called as jeep disease. Okay. So this is, we do not know whether it is congenital or acquired, but certain theories point it that it may be after all acquired disease. So the other locations of pilonidal sinus are interdigital. That means between the fingers, like this. Okay. Then axilla and umbilicus may be there. So how to identify that? So this interdigital, particularly in hairdressers, and there is hair inside. That hair is, whose hair is it? Whose hair is that? In interdigital pilonidal sinus, hair is seen. Whose hair is it? Yes, good. 14. Customers. It is customer's hair, not the patient's hair. But in pilonidal sinus, in the common region, it is the patient's hair only. Okay, that is important. So usually the age is between 22 to 29. Congenital means it should be much earlier, though it may manifest late, it should be much earlier. So another thing that it is congenital is there are no hair follicles on the wall of the sinus. If it is a congenital problem, there should be hair follicles. And the hair that you see in the pilonidal sinus is dead. It is not live. And the pointed ends are towards the blind end. So that doesn't look plausible if it is congenital. And mostly seen in men, of course, particularly hairy men. And there is no satisfactory treatment. That's why recurrence is fairly common. So these are all the points to say that it may not be congenital, because in interdigital pilonidal sinus, the hair is from customer's hair. Then it is seen, the age is between 22 to 29. There are no hair follicles. It is dead hair, seen particularly in hairy men only. If it is congenital, it should be present in all men, but it is present only in hairy men. Okay. Then, of course, as I told you, recurrence is not. Recurrence is fairly common. What is the reason? Maybe because of friction and shearing forces. Constant movement between two buttocks will lead the hair to be sucked inside. The hair that is broken may be sucked inside, and then it will penetrate the skin and then land there. So what is the important differential diagnosis? Anal fistulas, and there is a condition called as hidradenitis suppurativa. Can anybody tell me what is this hidradenitis suppurativa? Hidradenitis suppurativa. Since there is not much of a time, I will tell you it is inflammation and infection of, need not be in the axilla, you are correct, 4-1. So it is sweat gland inflammation or infection. Need not be in the axilla. Commonest is presentation is in the axilla, but it is even anal region, there is a lot of sweating. Okay. So how does it manifest? Either pain or swelling because of inflammation, and sometimes there may be discharge also, and repeated abscesses. So how do we treat it? The moment you see pilonidal sinus, don't jump to surgery. First try conservative. What is it? Rest and local baths, antiseptic dressing, antibiotic. So these four things you should, so they should take some rest off from the travel particularly. Then local baths can be, warm baths can be given, dressings can be done, and antibiotic fine. But if it is not relieving, patient is frequently coming. So there is a saying among the doctors, particularly surgeons, you send, you refer fistula in ano, diabetic foot patients to your enemies. So similarly, pilonidal sinus also, if at all you have any enemy, you can send us. You should be surgeon, of course. So now your biggest enemy is the HOD of surgery, I believe. Okay, so do refer pilonidal sinus cases, no problem. We are there to treat. Now, so it is, if there is abscess, you have to drain it by a longitudinal incision. And it should be away from midline. That is very important. Away from midline, because this pilonidal sinus tract is in the midline. You try to drain away from the midline through and thorough curettage you have to do of all the granulation tissue and hair. Everything you should remove. Okay? Then is the next course. There are people who say just simply lay it open. Some people say, no, you close it. Then there are people who say you have to excise all tracts, small tracts will be there, you have to excise, otherwise recurrence is common. So after excising all these things, some people close it by various procedures. See, the number of procedures will tell you that there is no satisfactory treatment. So Limburg procedure, jet plasty, so that you will avoid scar in the midline. Then Karidakis procedure is there. We commonly do what is called as Bascom's procedure. So what is this Bascom's? I will show you. So this is the pilonidal sinus, but you have opened away, far away. But you have reached the sinus, removed the whole thing like this, and these sinuses, the openings are also should be removed. Okay, so then you can gradually pack it, and ultimately you can suture here. So that is called as Bascom's procedure. So you don't open in the midline. That is very, very important. Whatever may be the name of the procedure, if you write the fact that we should not open in the middle, should open away from midline. That is important. And you can excise these pits and then close them. But this one, you have to be careful. Don't immediately close. After some time, you can close it, right? So that is Bascom's procedure, right? Okay. So if you have any doubts, I'm glad to answer. Otherwise, okay. Thank you.